Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kingdom Kids. We've started a bit earlier here, so you can, I see myself there. Very cool. So we're going to be talking this morning about a very interesting topic. We're going to be talking about practical parenting tips to help your child cope with anxiety. And we'd like to ask those of you who are on at the moment to just start sharing. We have with us Celeste Rashby from Cape Town. Welcome, Celeste.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you again. For those of you who don't know, Celeste is a parenting coach and an occupational therapist. So we're getting two for the price of one here. Plus, she's a mother of 3 children, a singleton and twins. So we're getting a full package. For being with us today, Celeste. What is the weather like in Cape Town this morning?
Beautifully sunny, but definitely a bit of a chill in the air. So,
let me volume off here. How did this volume go off? There we go, it's off. Okay, now I see. So we have Megan van Heerden watching. Hi, Megan. Lovely to have you. And let's see if I can unscroll this thingy here. Oh, golly. What did we do before lockdown? We were clueless with technology.
We've had to have a crash course, eh?
Yeah, for sure. I didn't even know what Zoom was before before lockdown.
Well, thankfully, my line of work, I do quite a lot of Zoom consults to help parents from all over the world, because as a parenting coach, the parents in every country and every state and every province need help with their kids, because they're not born with manuals. Imagine if they were born with manuals. Imagine how big your tummy would be then.
No, actually, to give birth, you need to just download the manual, and then these extra hands need to just pop out. So
exactly. Every extra child, you have an extra arm, just until they're about 5. Then you can lose it and not look like an octopus. But that would be a very, very helpful little attachment.
I think you're onto something there. We need to
imagine if I was pregnant with twins and I had a manual for each one of them in my belly with my giant belly. That would have been interesting.
No, the thought of twins makes me a bit, I think we need to talk about anxiety just for the thought of having twins. One at a time is more than enough. And for you, well done. Maybe one day we do a session just about twins.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's cool. So we're heading for 11 o'clock now, Celeste. I'd like to encourage those who are watching, if you've got any questions, please pop them in the comment section on the Facebook page and on YouTube, and we will definitely look at them and try to answer them. And I've got a question for you, starting with the topic of being practical. I like the idea of being practical. How to, it's one thing to get information. It's another thing to empower somebody to actually do it in their home and not think, oh, that's just too much. I can't do that. So specifically with anxiety, I've got, in the last few weeks, we've introduced hand sanitizer in our home, and there's a lot of stress when somebody goes out the house and comes back in from shopping. And then, the masks. Isn't this a pretty one? It's actually becoming more of a fashion statement than actually a health issue.
Yeah.
What's going to match my outfits?
Yeah.
But with these new things being an addition in our lifestyle, I know they're one of many things that have caused anxiety in families. And Celeste, if you can start by telling us, what are the symptoms of an anxious child?
Okay, so you get some kids that are sort of born with an anxious temperament, in which case it's something that you'll start seeing symptoms from very young, and it won't be quite as pronounced and obvious as a child that's suddenly going through an anxiety period their lives. So a child that hasn't had a problem with anxiety as a long-term condition, and then is suddenly struggling with anxiety, you'll see often the most common is a tummy ache. And, but parents, just because your child's got a tummy ache doesn't mean that he definitely is anxious. It could be a variety of other aspects you could look at, like maybe you haven't dewormed for a while, or need some probiotics, or there's some constipation. But tummy aches, especially when it's something that's happening daily, or that happens every time just before a specific event, like perhaps every time before guitar lessons, or every Friday morning because Fridays are test days, or whatever it is, there might be a pattern to when it's happening. Or perhaps it's happening every morning before school because a child's being bullied at school. So that's one of the symptoms. Another one is a sudden disturbance in sleep. So there hasn't been issues with sleep before, and suddenly your child is struggling with insomnia, or having recurring nightmares, that sort of thing. Appetite can also be affected, that either they just don't eat at all anymore, they just don't have an appetite, or the opposite, that they're stress eating. So they eat a lot more, they crave a lot of the sugary, starchy thingies, types of foods for comfort food. And then another sign to look for is mood swings. So that the small things that would not usually be an issue would just cause an explosion, where it's just like, love, you need to go get your shoes. And then you go, did you get your shoes? I can't find my shoes. That it's completely over the top type of reaction to things that are really quite otherwise would be insignificant. So those are some of the symptoms to look out for.
Okay, thanks for that. So if those are the symptoms, being, tummy aches, disturbance in sleep, recurring nightmares, mood swings, sweating the small things, so to speak, what would the causes for the anxiety be? I'm not sure if the symptoms and causes, are different, or how would you explain that?
So this is where the nature versus nurture comes in. It's not very common, but there are some kids that are born with a predisposition towards anxiety. Okay, that it's part of their temperament, it's part of their brain chemistry, often passed down from a parent or a grandparent, where they just have elevated levels of stress hormones. They just think very deeply. So that's where you will have the 3-year-old that has been put to bed, and you hear some crying happening in there, soft whimpering, and you walk in, you say, baby, what's wrong? And you get, mommy, there are children out there that are sleeping in the streets tonight. It's those kind of kids that are just the deep thinkers, that are just so saddened by things that are happening in the world that really shouldn't be bothering such little people. So that could be a genetic factor, but most of the time it's environmental, and there's a lot of different factors that can bring it in. So perhaps it's something that is suddenly happening in their environment, like the fact that they are stuck in lockdown and can't see their friends and can't go to all the fun places that they love, and they're surrounded 24/7 by their siblings that they used to love a lot more when they got a break from them. And, and everybody's talking about this virus that people are dying from, and I can't even see it. And it's, so it could be an environmental thing, or like I said, a bully at school, or specific events like having to swim when the pool is really cold at school, that would trigger anxiety. It could also be a sensory trigger. So if your child is hypersensitive to certain things, that they know that a certain environment is going to cause that awful feeling of overload, and so they start getting anxious before they arrive there, or when they know it's coming, like if they see a vacuum cleaner come out of the cupboard, that they suddenly start feeling overwhelmed and anxious because they are hypersensitive to sound. Another thing that can cause it is having the boundary love tank balance out of whack. So what I mean by that is that kids need, if you picture a scale, kids need clear, consistent, predictable boundaries. So they need to know that your yes is your yes and your no is your no. If sometimes your no means absolutely no, other times your no means, unless I'm just so tired, then whatever. Or unless you embarrass me in front of all these people in the park, then whatever, just do it. That inconsistency makes them insecure, and it can actually trigger anxiety. So people that think that you need to let up on boundaries when your child is anxious are actually causing more anxiety in your child, because they feel like if they can't trust their own parents, how can they trust themselves, their own instinct, or anybody else around them? So it's so important that they need to be able to trust their parents to say what they mean and mean what they say, so they can believe them when their parents tell them that they love them, that they're proud of them, that love, you don't have to be scared. I'm going to be right here with you the whole time. You see what I mean? So clear, consistent, predictable boundaries are very important, and equally as important is a full love tank. So knowing that there is nothing that I could say or do that could ever make my parents love me more or less. It's not performance-based. I don't have to get straight A's for them to love me. And if I get straight F's, they'll never love me less. Never. They will love me unconditionally. No matter what I do, say, or who I am cherished. Yes, they're going to have to deal with my behavior, but our relationship is never wavered. So if that scale is tipping either way, that there's a bit of a dip in love tank or a bit of a dip in the consistency of the boundaries, that can either way can trigger anxiety.
Thank you for that. I think that's very insightful. And yeah, I think sometimes we know certain things, but it doesn't filter down into our application. And I love the way you've described how, the difference between genetic and environmental issues and setting those clear boundaries to keep those love tanks full. I think often we need to also keep our love tanks full as well as parents, which brings me to the next question. Do parents teach their children to be anxious? If a parent is constantly anxious, can a child pick this behavior up from their parent? So is anxiety a learned behavior?
It can be. It's not necessarily always the parent's fault, but if the parent struggles with anxiety, their child is very much more at risk of struggling with anxiety as well. Even babies pick up anxiety from their mother, like absorb it like a sponge. There's no reasoning behind it. They can't reason, mom's just in a bad mood, or she just had a bad day. They just absorb it as their own emotion. And it can become a learned behavior. But sometimes the parents have absolutely no issues with anxiety, but the child still does. So please don't blame yourself. However, it's important to keep in mind that you cannot pour from an empty cup. So it is so important to take care of yourself as an adult. Take care of yourself so that you can take care of others. If you keep giving and giving and giving and giving and giving, and eventually you'll be spewing out bile because there's just nothing left to give. So you've got to actually make that decision to schedule it and make it happen, to make sure that your love tank gets filled, that you make something happen every single week that makes you feel rejuvenated, renewed, refreshed, so that you can be a better mother, father, spouse, work colleague, friend, everything. So make sure you are filled yourself.
That's very, very wise. And I love that, being intentional about ourselves, not being anxious. The kids will feel the environment, the vibe, the atmosphere in the
Yes.
home as well. And I also think it's good because if we do it, they can then model that it's also important for them to do the things that rejuvenate them, whether
Yes.
it's playing in the mud or painting or whatever
Exactly.
it is, purely fun, and that they enjoy. Yeah.
Yes, and it's important that, things like, oh, you didn't wash your hands, or oh, remember the mask, and oh, don't touch your face. If you have that kind of reaction, you could very much rub off anxiety onto the kids about it. But if you rather go, oh, looks like something's missing on your face.
Yeah.
Be playful about that, or oh, those hands, I'm sure they're quite stinky by now. Be playful about it. Then they will be able to take a lighthearted approach and not get anxious about these things. And they're kids, man. They don't need to be weighed down by these stresses. Just relax.
I like that. So I think we've almost answered that. That was going to be one of my next questions. If my child is anxious, what must my reaction be? And how should I react? What must I watch out for? What must I do? Maybe you can share a little bit more about that.
Okay, so the first thing is to be the calm, don't join the chaos. Don't get all wild up with your child. It's only going to make it worse. You're going to take it from an 8 to a 12. You need to be calm. Don't let the child trigger you. So you need to practice yourself some tools that are going to help you be able to breathe and pull yourself together and be rational. Remove yourself if you have to. In fact, I find it quite helpful if you can say, I can see you're not in a good space to talk about this right now, or I'm not going to allow you to speak to me like that. So I'm going to remove myself, and we're all feeling calmer. We can discuss this again. Okay, so take those strategies rather than being reactive. Okay, don't project your anxiety on your child like we were speaking about now. Now, if your child's anxiety is being expressed in an appropriate way, appropriate meaning that it's not physically hurting anybody around them, it's not emotionally hurting people around them, and it's not destroying property. Okay, so if they've expressed their emotions appropriately by going, Mom, I'm just so scared. Okay, that kind of thing is a very appropriate expression of emotion. If you have that, then you show empathy and you make yourself available to them. So you go, oh, baby, I get that. And you allow them to, if they want to talk or if they need a hug or whatever they need, you supply that for them. However, if it's an inappropriate expression of emotions, like smacking my brother in his face or screaming and stamping my foot or slamming doors, throwing something across the room, that kind of thing is an inappropriate expression of emotion. This is not the time where you go, oh, honey, are you feeling frustrated? No. This is the time when you empathize with the emotion, but you reiterate the boundary. So you can say, my boy, I get that you are frustrated, but that is not the way we treat people. And you follow through on a consequence for it, right? Unless, of course, they're in fight or flight mode, in an actual panic attack. That's different. I'm talking about milder anxiety reactions, okay? Then once everything is calmed down, and often you can't actually in that space, especially for kids that are age 6 and up, you can't always give a consequence straight away. You actually need to wait until everybody is calmed down. Then you can come back again and discuss it and say, okay, remember what happened a little bit earlier. Now, do you think that was did that go really well? Not so much, this and this happened, blah, blah. What do you think you can do next time? Okay. Oh, that's such a good idea. Oh, and what about this and this? Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. However, because of the way that you did handle it not being so great, you're going to need to have a consequence for it. So what I need you to do is X, Y, Z. So I'll give you an example of something that's happened in my own home quite recently. So my girl twin has got a sensory sensitivity with her feet that she needs them to be very tightly squeezed if she wears shoes. So she prefers to be barefoot, but if she wears shoes, she wears at least 3 pairs of socks. And it's got to be a type of shoe that you can somehow like either tie really, really tightly with laces or Velcro, like, so it's like making dents in her feet, because it makes her feel anxious because of her sensory processing issue, makes her feel anxious if it's loose and flappy on her feet. Okay. Now, you know, because we don't have a nanny, I wasn't up to date with the washing, and she only had 1 pair of socks to wear with her shoes. And everybody wanted to go for a walk, and she was going, I don't want to go. My shoes aren't tight enough. They're still loose. You know, just having a bit of a meltdown. And so I said, okay, so I can't let you treat me like that. So I'm going to remove myself and wait for you to calm down. She's 7, by the way. Went out. She calmed down. She made a plan with some other socks, got them on, came out. We went for a walk. Everything was lovely for the walk, you know, having amazing time in nature, smiling, no problem. Came back, everybody's in a good space. And then I sat with her and I said, so this morning, when you couldn't find the other socks, how are you feeling? She's like, I was feeling so frustrated. I was like, yeah, I get that. You're so frustrated because you couldn't find the socks to give your feet the squeeze that they needed, right? Yeah. Oh, wow. I totally get that. But the way that you showed your frustration, oh, that just sucked the joy out of the room, didn't it? Made everybody's good mood like out of the, so that wasn't so great, was it? No. Okay. So tonight, this evening, when it's TV time, when the TV goes on, I'm going to need you to retreat to a different room and spend the first few minutes writing an apology card to each member of the family. And once you've done that, you can come out, give it to each person, then you can join your brother and sister watching TV. Okay, Mom. Okay. So then she learns that there is no issue with expressing your feelings, but there's ways to do it that are appropriate. And if she had said, if she'd gone, Mom, I really, really struggle with the socks when my shoes aren't tight enough, it just feels awful. Flip, I would have held her, I would have squeezed her feet for her manually with my hands and got her my own socks to put on her. So, oh, I get it, my love. It's a difficult feeling, isn't it? That would be a completely different approach. I'd be there for her and empower her. But yeah, we don't allow explosions.
That's really, really good advice, because I can only imagine, you know, if a parent then starts reacting inappropriately, they're then also teaching them that this is, and we're all guilty of that.
Yes.
I'm sure in lockdown, lots of us watching who cannot say we're excluded from having not done this perfectly. I almost wish we had your words of everything you've just said now. You need to start like wall decals for people's homes, so that when something happens, you can go, oh yes, Celeste said that. We need to do that.
All you need to do is have me for a home visit, or a Skype consult, and I'll teach you all of my tricks.
Sounds great. Tell us, I just want to say hi to, I see my mom's watching from Witbank. Pastor Mariana's watching. Hi. I see my mom-in-law's watching. Cindy van Wallich is watching. Hi, guys. If there's any questions you have, please feel free to write them. If you've got any questions about your children or people, yeah, just write it down and we will gladly try and answer it. Well, Celeste will try and answer it. I have to still learn how to practice what Celeste just taught us. Tell me, Celeste, what can I do to help my child who seems to be struggling with anxiety? And I think you've outlined that quite nicely in your example with your own daughter. But if my child's battling with anxiety, you know, do I talk about it to them all the time? I really, really love, and this has always been a Munchkins thing from a long time back, one of the first talks I ever heard your mom do. And you remind me so much of your mom, the way you talk and the things you say. and she did a talk about a treasure map, and I'll never forget that. And exactly what you've said there is, in the moment, you don't tackle the issue. You wait for that quiet moment later in the day or at another appropriate time, and then
But
you
that's
talk.
only for over threes, though. Children
Yes.
under 3 need an immediate reaction, either positive or negative. Whereas children from age 3 and up can have got auditory memory, they've got the processing ability to be able to think about it, chew on it, look at what to do next time. And it gets easier and easier from the age of 3. Before the age of 3, they don't remember what happened 10 minutes ago. They don't. Yeah. Talking about is like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's got so yes, but it really does help not being judgmental, not being reactive, and you always speak to me like that. You know, that's not going to get through to them. But to rather put down that boundary of, I'm not going to let you speak to me like that. So I'm going to mute myself, and we will try again a little bit later. And you can say, and there will have to be a consequence for you speaking to me like that, but we'll discuss what that will be a little bit later. Then they can actually respect what the consequence is, or respect your opinion and your thoughts on the matter when everybody's in a better space. Then it actually goes in rather than just hitting a brick wall, you know. And if your child is one that tends to struggle with anxiety, your strategy should not be to bubble wrap your child, but to rather empower them.
Yeah.
So don't try and hold them back from situations that you know cause anxiety, and don't do full throttle either, that you just chuck them in and expect them to swim. But of course, it depends on the level of anxiety and what the situations are. But your rule of thumb should be empower. So your child to develop strategies to be able to get this right themselves, rather than being dependent on you to protect them. Well, you to be able to make it better for them. Because, you know, our purpose as parents is to be our children's scaffolding, not their pillar. And if a child feels like they need to lean on you like a pillar, one day you're not going to be there anymore, and they're just going to collapse. And sometimes there's going to be some times in their childhood that you're not going to be there, and they're going to collapse. So instead, you need to just support them just as much as they need, empower them, give them the tools, and then step back and see how they do.
Yeah.
Right. And if they fail, then you go, whoops, that didn't work. That's okay. Let's give it another try. Try a different angle, rather than going, you see, I knew he couldn't do it. Drama.
Yes.
And no, and another tool, that I found really helpful is to create an emotion chart. And this is something you can do from about the age of 3. Ours is a big A2 poster in the hallway. And then don't just put up things like happy, sad, cross, but go down to the nitty gritty type emotions like jealous, disappointed, frustrated, exhausted is an important one as well, because sometimes it's not an actual environmental, something that's triggering my emotion that's happening to me, but rather just physical exhaustion that's making me feel loneliness, all those more detailed emotions. And make sure that the pictures that you use are not simplistic emojis, but are pictures that if a child looked at it without reading it, they could feel what that person is feeling. It could even be, the picture could even be a situation that's happening. And then what I like to do is, from the age of 3, you have your child actually look at each one, and then you explain what each one is in giving examples of situations that would relate to your child. So for example, if you're saying, can you think of a time that you felt jealous? And they go, I don't know. You go, oh, I remember a time that I went out for ice cream with Daddy, and he got his ice cream and it was this big. And then when they handed me mine was only this big. And I was feeling quite jealous. So you put it in context to what they'd understand. Then when you see an emotion flaring up and it hasn't turned into an explosion, so it hasn't, you catch it quickly before, the alarm bells go off, and you scoop them up and you quickly take them to the chart and you say, love, come show me which one you're feeling. And they'll go, that one, you're frustrated. That one, angry. That one, sad. You're feeling frustrated. You're feeling angry and you're feeling sad. Tell me more about that. Well, this happened and that and that, and let them just get it all off their chest. And your purpose here is not to give a solution or to fix it. And this is especially hard for men. Men like to fix things. You're not supposed to fix it. What you're supposed to do is just be a sounding board to make them feel heard and understood. So you reflect, you go, oh, I get how that could be so frustrating. Yeah. Oh man, that must have been really hard for you. Oh. And the only thing that you would say at the end of it is, thank you for sharing your feelings with me. You give them a hug and you go out. You don't go, oh, don't worry, you're going to have a turn next, or don't do that. Don't fix it for them. Just be a sounding board. And if they had expressed their emotion inappropriately and they're still learning their emotions, then you deal with the inappropriate expression of emotion like we discussed before. Then later on, when everybody's in a calm space, you take them back and you say, which one were you feeling earlier when that happened? Oh, Mama, I was definitely feeling that one and that one. Oh, I get that, hey, because this and this. Oh, totally get that. However, the way that you expressed your emotion, well, that didn't go too well. Got your brother hurt, the toy broken, this and this. Nah. What do you think you can do next time instead for it to go so much better? See, and that empowers them with better tools.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Are there any psychological aspects to take into account when helping a child with anxiety?
So if the anxiety is so much that it's overwhelming their world. So it's not just a short-term thing, it's actually impacting their sleep, their mood, their ability to be able to function in life, you will need to get more help. So the tools I'm giving you today are more for the short-term anxiety or the lesser levels of anxiety. But if it's something that is all-consuming, you will need to look at taking them to play therapy or that kind of thing for more intervention. But you also need to look at a physiological, the physiological aspects, because sometimes, we allow our anxious kids to kind of hide in a hole and, protect themselves like that. But the thing is that things like diet and exercise are incredibly important to help your child with anxiety. Regular exercise. I mean, for my kids during the lockdown, we've got a non-negotiable Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We are all going out to exercise. You can choose to ride your bike or ride your scooter or to run or whatever you want to do, but it's non-negotiable 3 times a week. And when it's not lockdown, that should be for your kids as well, that it doesn't have to be going for a walk. It could be any physical activity you choose, but you need to have at least a specific amount of time, depending on the age group of the child, that you have physical activity of your choice, but any physical activity, because that produces the right kind of hormones to reduce your stress levels. It's been proven to reduce your stress levels. It's very, very important for mothers as well, mothers and fathers as well. You need to exercise regularly. And, if you're not eating the right things, then it can mess with your blood sugar levels, it can mess with your brain chemistry, and it can make you more depressed and anxious. So it's very important that your kids have a clean diet if they're struggling with anxiety, but every child should, but especially if they're struggling with anxiety.
That's really, really resourceful and I think very practical. I know that, also sitting down and doing homework at home with children now is different, and we even battled with a bit of a tummy ache. No names mentioned. They're in the room. But I think, some days just take us a little bit longer than other days. It's really helpful to hear the advice that you've sent. I know it's definitely going to help me personally, and I really hope it's going to help everybody who gets to listen to this broadcast. I see we have on YouTube, we have Katinka Sadie. Hi, Katinka. I'm glad you're watching. And we've got a question here from Patsy. What about motivating a 9-year-old to participate in class, not sit and watch the other children working? I'm not sure if that relates to anxiety or how you would respond to how to motivate a child in class to participate.
Yeah. So I would use an incentive tool for that. So find something that the child absolutely loves and let him earn it. Make sure that he's not just getting what he wants for free, but if he, so during lockdown, for example, he's, can't exactly go out to an indoor trampoline place or, go whatever exciting outings, but he might really enjoy being able to play Xbox, for example. And he can earn minutes of Xbox. So you could start, say, you could make little coupons of 5-minute increment coupons. And then on a Monday, he starts with 3 of them, so 15 minutes. And throughout the week, he can earn or lose. And however many he has by Friday afternoon is how many he's got to use to cash in over the weekend. So that's how many minutes of Xbox he gets through the weekend. And so if you just, any time from Friday afternoon to Sunday evening. And so if you've got a motivational tool like that, rather than just going, why don't you do that? I wish you would, you should do more of that. Rather go, you know what? Every time I see you participating, you get an extra 5 minutes, you get an extra coupon. So let's see how it goes, create an incentive tool. And the thing is, what happens is then, I'm a big fan of using incentive tools if they're used correctly for behaviors that children find don't come naturally to them. Okay, so not things that they find easy, but things that are really difficult for them to work on. Every child has different strengths and weaknesses, and adults as well. So if there's certain areas that you're finding difficult, if you are motivated to really be intentional about trying to get that right, then you need that motivation in the beginning to do it, and then it becomes your new norm. The more you practice, it becomes your new norm. And that's something that I've used for anxiety as well. My eldest daughter, I'm not sure if you know about this, but children between the ages of 9 and 11 start rewiring their brain from the back again. The part of their brain where it's just all about big emotions and flight, fright, or flight mode, and very far away from the prefrontal cortex, which is actually thinking rationally and chewing through things and, seeing the big picture. And so usually between 9 and 11, there's a sudden surge of anxiety and outbursts and big feelings and big emotions. And so explaining that to your child really helps. But I created an incentive tool for my eldest when she started going through this, called the I Can chart. And it's basically a resilience chart, but basically every time she handled a difficult situation with poise and with, you know what, I'm just going to give it a try, rather than, but I can't do it, that she could just go, okay, it's hard, I'm not going to give up, or taking a deep breath, I can do this, just taking it in her stride and being intentional about it. Then, wow, my love, you definitely need to go up a step on your I Can chart. And it's 7 steps to reward, 7 steps to reward, and 7 steps to reward. And it's fun little things like being able to do each other's makeup, or earning a canvas that she can paint, or she loves painting, just fun little things, art and crafts activities that we do at home, that kind of thing. So remember that those motivational tools, then you need to not give unless they've earned it. Make them earn it.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. They're not for free.
Definitely not for free.
I like that. Celeste, I want to say thank you so much for your time. Marie, I see you've just joined us. But I also want to say to those who are watching that we are saving this broadcast, so you can go back and re-listen to it if you've only just tuned in now, or you've only heard a portion of it. And you're welcome to share and tag your friends who you think it'll be helpful for them. Maybe they're struggling during lockdown. And I really do believe that everything we've spoken about this morning has been extremely helpful. So I'm not sure if there's anything you want to add, Celeste, in closing.
Well, just that you need to be able to model for your children how to do stress management. If you are feeling stressed, you need to, what we call it in our family is take a moment. So if you feel like a situation is starting to get overwhelming, you need to be able to say, I need to take a moment and remove yourself. And the rule is, if somebody is taking a moment, nobody else is allowed to follow them. They need to give that person space. So you don't get to go and have your last say following them. You back off and let them take space, because that's a very appropriate way to be able to handle your anxiety. And once the dust is settled, then you can go and chat about it. But it's important that you model that as a parent as well. When things are feeling too much, that you just go, I'm going to go take a moment, and you retreat and teach your kids how.
That's awesome. And then if you can let us know if anybody who is watching would like to get hold of one of the Munchkins coaches or yourself, where do they need to go? How can they arrange a session on Zoom for their family? Okay,
so the company's called Munchkins, and you can find us on www.munchkins.me. We have coaches around South Africa. I'm in Cape Town, but I do Zoom online sessions. We've actually got 10% discount on all online consults at the moment during lockdown. So grab it quickly while you still can. We help with everything from every parenting challenge. So whether it's sleep issues, fussy eating, not listening, tantrums, bad attitude, refusing to do my homeschooling, absolutely everything, from cradle till empty nest. We can help you. And even on our website, we've got some lovely articles and recipes, and we're on Facebook as well. Some great helpful videos there for tools as well.
That's awesome. Thank you, Celeste. I've dropped your website in the comment section, and I'll also go and find the link for the Munchkins Village, and also drop that for people to join, as that's also a helpful tool. So I just want to say thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you. You too. Okay.
Bye.